Hello, students, and welcome. This is your seventh grade science, and for the seventh grade science students, this is a chapter which is chapter number 8, and the name of the chapter is chemical reactions, which I'm going to start today with you all. So I'm going to explain my own notes, which you can see on the screen as well. And before I start with this, I want to show you that from the textbook, this is that chapter that I'm going to start with. So if you are having your own textbook, you will see this particular chapter, that is chapter number 8, chemical reactions. Okay. And this is for the seventh grade science students that I'm going to start with. Right. And as you can see, this chemical reactions, this entire chapter, if you go through it in your textbook, now this is just to, for you to locate in your textbook. This is the page that you have to go. This is the topic that you have to go in your textbook. So open your textbook and go to this particular chapter 8.1. Okay. And this book, you will have to refer to this book in your this textbook which you have with you. You'll have to refer to this whenever I explain you the things. Okay. Now from this textbook only I have prepared my notes, and I'll take you to that now. Right. Okay. So now we can see this chapter, chemical reactions. Okay, the first thing that I've done is I've made a mind map of this particular chapter. Now, what do you mean by mind map? Okay, mind map of a chapter is nothing but all the things, all the important topics that you are going to study in this particular chapter. Okay, from the textbook itself, from the point of textbook. Okay, there are so many extra things that I love to teach you, but then first we have to concentrate on what is there in the textbook. First we have to understand and digest what is there in the textbook, the question answers from the textbook, and everything. We have to first digest the textbook. Okay, so the mind map is something that will show you, so you can show you the entire topics that are covered in this chapter. So as you can see, chemical reactions is the name of the chapter. This is chapter number 8 in your textbook, as I told you. And this particular chapter has been divided into so many sections. Like in your textbook, you can see it is 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, etc. Okay. So what I've done is first I am going to discuss this mind map. Okay. So in the mind map, I will always discuss what are the different topics that you are going to study, okay, in the order, okay, in this particular chapter. So that order has been divided by me into A, B, C, D, and E, right? Okay. So you can see that chemical reactions is the name of the chapter, and the first topic or the first section in this particular chapter that you'll start with is something called exothermic reactions. Okay. In this exothermic reactions, what all things you are going to study that I have pointed out over here. So you are going to study what is the meaning of exothermic reaction, what is its definition, what are the examples of exothermic reactions, and how burning or combustion is nothing but exothermic reactions. Then the combination of hydrogen and oxygen gas to form water is an example. And potassium reacting with water is also an example of an exothermic reaction. And magnesium metal reacting with hydrochloric acid is another example of exothermic reactions. And then from this textbook, whatever question answers are there, okay, that we are going to discuss in this particular section, that is section A. Once section A is completed, we'll move on to section B. So section B is endothermic reactions. So basically, these chemical reactions can be classified into exothermic reactions and endothermic reactions, right? Okay. In this chapter, okay, as far as your seventh grade is concerned, okay, there are chemical reactions which can be classified into more categories also. But right now we are going to concentrate chemical reactions being classified into exothermic and endothermic. That's it. Okay. So next section, B section, is something called endothermic reaction. So what is endothermic reaction? We are going to understand the meaning of it. We are going to study what is the definition of it. We are going to study what are the different examples of endothermic reactions. Then we are going to study this particular example, okay, in detail, that is NaHCO3, that is sodium hydrogen carbonate. It is also called as sodium bicarbonate, okay. When this sodium hydrogen carbonate reacts with citric acid, it is going to be an endothermic reaction. Again, this reaction, that is KCl plus H2O. Now, KCl is potassium chloride. Okay, when this potassium chloride reacts with water, this is also an reaction which comes under endothermic reaction. Okay, then melting of an ice is again a endothermic reaction. Okay, now melting of ice is a endothermic reaction. Yes, it is a endothermic reaction. Okay, and then the uses and the applications of this endothermic reaction also we are going to study in this chapter. Okay, in section B. And then of course the question and answers from the textbook for this particular section B. So after completing section B, we'll be moving on to section C, and in section C you have reactions of metals with oxygen. So the different metals, some of the metals like zinc, iron, copper and magnesium. I've written the symbol of these metals over here. Zn is zinc, Fe is iron, C is copper, Mg is magnesium. Okay, when these metals are actually when we burn this metal in air, okay, this is nothing but going to create a reaction between that metal and the oxygen, because air consists oxygen, right? Air essentially consists oxygen. So metals plus oxygen reaction is nothing but burning metal in air. Okay, so when you burn any metal in air, in the presence of air, okay, that is going to give you this reaction only, metal plus oxygen, right? Now, basically, in any case, whatever metal you take and when you burn it in air, what happens is the oxides, okay, of these metals are formed, or hydroxide of these metals are formed generally. Okay, not hydroxide, of course. Oxides of metal are formed, not hydroxide. I'm sorry. So, these reactions we are going to study, reaction of various metals when they are burnt in air, what happens. So in general, that particular metal oxide will be formed. Okay, so that is a general thing. So that we are going to study in this section. Then we are going to study what is the order of reactivity. Okay, so order of reactivity means which particular metal is more vigorously reacting in air. Okay, or which metal is burning more vigorously, more fast in air. So that order we will be deciding, order of reactivity. Okay. Now, in general, M stands for any metal, okay, and O stands for oxygen, that is burning in air. So metal plus oxygen will give you something called MO. Now, MO is metal oxide. You have to read this as metal oxide, right? M stands for no element, right? It stands for a metal, right? So metal, when reacts with oxygen, you will get a corresponding oxide of that metal. So suppose zinc you are burning with oxygen, or zinc you are making to react with oxygen, you will get zinc oxide. Copper reacting with oxygen will give you copper oxide. Magnesium reacting with oxygen will give you magnesium oxide, right? So this is a general statement that any metal reacting with oxygen will give you that corresponding metal oxide. For example, iron, Fe is iron, okay, that reacts with oxygen to give you Fe oxide, that is iron oxide. Okay. Now, whenever iron oxide is formed, okay, this is something called rusting. Okay, so rusting is a phenomenon, and this rusting is nothing but the formation of iron oxide. So whenever iron, okay, reacts with oxygen, that is in the presence of air, okay, and of course moisture is also needed for rusting. So, and in air moisture is also there, okay. So oxygen and moisture both are responsible for this rusting. So that rusting also we are going to study in this particular section. What are the causes and what are the measures for preventing that rusting? That also we are going to study. Okay. And of course, question answers from the textbook related to this particular rusting. I mean, this particular section C. Okay. After that, we'll move to section D. In that, we are going to study reactions of metals with water. So, say some of the metals like say zinc, iron, copper, magnesium. Okay, these are just examples. Okay, so these metals, when they react with water, what happens? That we are going to study in this particular section. Now, here also the order of reactivity we are going to study. So, which is the metal which is reacting very fast, very vigorously with water? Okay, so that we are going to study, and which particular metal is not vigorously reacting. So, that order of reactivity in the case of water also we are going to study. Some examples like sodium reacts with water and it will give you sodium hydroxide, okay, and a formation of hydrogen gas will be there. Potassium when reacts with water, again there will be a formation of that potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas will be given out. Okay, so these are the examples that we are going to study in detail in this section D. And then metal plus steam. So when metals, they are reacted with steam, what happens? Okay, steam means nothing but water only, but in the vapor state, in the gaseous state. So there we are going to study an example of magnesium. So magnesium, when reacts with water in the form of steam, okay, what happens? Okay, so that we are going to study in detail in this particular, and of course the question answers pertaining to this particular section D. And the last section E is reaction of metals with dilute acid. Okay, so some of the metals, they react with dilute acid as well. So in general, M stands for metal and A stands for acid. So whenever a metal and an acid react, there is a formation of a salt and hydrogen gas is given out. Okay, so this is a general equation. So for example, suppose if you take magnesium as a metal and if you take sulfuric acid, H2SO4 is nothing but sulfuric acid. Okay, so it will give you a salt and hydrogen gas will be given out, right? Again, zinc, if you react it with nitric acid, HNO3 is nitric acid, Zn is zinc. So when you react them, you will again get some salt formation, okay, and there will be formation of hydrogen gas as well. So these are the things that you are going to study, and of course the question answers of this particular E section also you are going to study from the textbook, right? Apart from this, you can see I have written here at the bottom, we will be discussing the exam style questions from the textbook. So at the end of the textbook, there are some exam style questions that we are going to solve. And then of course, after that, we are going to solve my worksheets. Okay, so my personal worksheets, okay, that you are going to solve. Okay, so this is something which is known as mind map. Okay, and in my every chapter, okay, whether it is physics, chemistry, whatever, okay, for every chapter, I make this mind map. So this mind map will give you a general idea of what all things are included in that chapter that you have to study. Okay, and then we are going to go stepwise into that chapter in that particular order and complete the chapter from the textbook. Okay, so this is my strategy of teaching science to you all people. Okay, so that was the mind map for this chemical reaction chapter, and this today's session I'm ending here only. And in the next session, I'll be starting with the very first part, that is A part. Okay, that is section A. You can see here, section A is exothermic reaction. So the definition and the meaning of the exothermic reactions and how you have to write the chemical word equations. Okay, you in 7th grade you have to write only the word equations. Okay, you are not going to write the formulas. Okay, so remember that. So carbon plus oxygen will give you carbon dioxide and heat will be generated or given out. So all the things we are going to study later on subsequently. Okay, so that's all for today. And in the next chapter, I'll start with this section A. Okay, that is exothermic reaction. So today I discussed only the mind map. Okay, you can see this, only the mind map part of this particular chapter. Is that okay? Fine. See you in the next lecture. Bye.